The famous 4% rule. The idea that if you withdraw 4% of your initial retirement portfolio, adjusted up for inflation, you'll never run out of money. I think you should largely ignore the 4% rule, and today I'm going to share 3 big reasons why, plus share a better approach to creating reliable retirement income that doesn't leave as much on the table. Reason number 1, it is based on a worst-case scenario analysis. It came from research in 1994 looking back at the worst 30-year retirement periods in history. William Bengen is credited with introducing the concept, and he has since revised the 4% rule to the 4.7% rule. And he's quoted saying, "I think the most important facet people overlook is that the 4% rule, or the newer version of the 4.7% rule, is the worst case scenario. It's really designed for only the most conservative person to use in retirement planning. It's like planning every car trip as if you'll hit the worst traffic jam possible. Sure, it's conservative, but it can end up being overkill. It might give you a similar feeling you'd get if, say, you show up to a movie 3 hours before it starts." I think Bengen's a pioneer in developing a starting point for a safe withdrawal rate. However, based on his own words, it's not a rule of thumb that everyone should follow. Reason number 2, it doesn't entirely account for sequence of return risk. It does in the sense that the 4% rule survived the worst back-tested scenarios, but it does not actively manage it in real time. If you have a heavy stock portfolio and follow the 4% rule, if the market has a bad run early in retirement, you're likely being forced to sell stocks when they're down, and even if the long-term average return of your portfolio looks fine, the damage of selling investments while they're down early in retirement could cause unrecoverable damage to your portfolio, decreasing your future retirement spending capacity. Markets are bumpy, and the order of returns matters just as much as the average return. If you perceive the 4% rule as, "I'll just invest entirely in stocks and pull 4% a year," you are opening up yourself to being heavily affected by sequence of return risk. And reason number 3, it doesn't match up with real retirement spending trends. In a prior video, Surprising Retirement Spending Trends, I showed how most retirees spend more early on in retirement on travel, hobbies, bucket list items, and then their spending naturally slows down later in retirement, with healthcare costs being the exception of the only category of spending where costs increase later in life. But the 4% rule assumes you'll spend the exact same amount adjusted up for inflation every single year. That is not realistic. It goes against the data of actual retirement spending. So if the 4% rule is flawed, what's a better way to plan for retirement income? I prefer something called the Guardrail Approach. First, you're going to find your retirement spending capacity. There's different ways to do that. That goes beyond the scope of this video. But instead of blindly taking that amount forever adjusted up for inflation, we use the Guardrail Approach paired with a more likely retirement spending pattern. If markets are strong and your portfolio grows, you give yourself a raise. Think the center line shifts to the right and the right guardrail gets further extended. If markets struggle and your portfolio shrinks a predetermined amount or percentage, same concept, but the line and guardrail shifts left. It's like driving down a winding mountain road, making sure the road that you're on is adjusted so you end up at the desired end destination. This approach balances flexibility and safety. It adapts to what's happening in your retirement instead of locking you into a rigid rule that may not be best aligned for your desired end result. The 4% rule can be used as a very general guideline to help figure out your retirement spending capacity in a worst-case scenario. But a more accurate spending plan embraces flexible strategies like the Guardrail Approach. This lets you spend confidently, adapt to markets, and enjoy your retirement without fear of running out of money. If you found this video helpful, check out my video here on Surprising Retirement Spending Trends, the one I referenced earlier. When you combine those insights with the Guardrail plan, you get a much more realistic view of what your retirement income plan should look like. Thank you for listening. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss next week's video. I'm excited about next week's video. It's going to be a good one. And as always, money is a tool, knowledge is freedom, and planning is power. Have a great rest of your day.